Imagine being a retired Marine, walking into a restaurant with your loyal service dog, only to be told you're not welcome. For Daniel Carson, this was a reality. But what happened next would turn the tables in ways no one saw coming. Rocky, his Belgian Malinois, wasn't just a dog, he was a hero who'd saved Daniel's life and many others in combat. When the world turned its back on them, a group of Marines would make sure their story was heard. Stay tuned to see how one moment of disrespect sparked a wave of honor, changing everything for Daniel and Rocky. Daniel Carson, at 62, was a retired Marine, his deep-set eyes carrying the weight of too many battles. Can you imagine what those eyes had seen? His silver hair, still clipped in that sharp military style, framed a face etched with resilience, and he walked with a slight limp, a silent reminder of the pieces of himself left behind in distant lands. For 8 years, his shadow, his rock, his unwavering companion was Rocky, a Belgian Malinois with piercing, intelligent eyes and a muzzle dusted with gray. That vest he wore, boldly stating "service dog, do not distract," wasn't just for show. Rocky was no ordinary dog. He was Daniel's lifeline, sensing the creeping shadows of PTSD before Daniel could even feel the tremors. Trained to press gently against Daniel's leg when his breathing quickened or his hands shook, Rocky's subtle nudges had stopped countless breakdowns in their tracks. What a hero in fur. It was a sunny Tuesday when Daniel stepped into the Blue Water Grill, a cozy spot famous for its mouth-watering seafood specials. He asked for a quiet corner table somewhere away from the bustle, where he could breathe easy. Rocky, ever the professional, slipped beneath the table, nestling between Daniel's feet, practically invisible to the other diners. Oh, how perfectly he blended in. The young waitress flashed a warm smile as she set down water and a menu, but her face froze when she spotted Rocky. Without a word, she spun on her heel and darted to the back office. What was that about? Moments later, a man in his 30s sporting a manager's badge and a scowl marched over, his disapproval as loud as his voice. "Sir, we have a strict no pets policy in this restaurant," he declared, loud enough to turn heads at nearby tables. Daniel, calm as ever, met his gaze. "Rocky's not a pet, he's a service animal," he said, reaching for the official certification in his pocket. But the manager, he just waved it off, not even glancing at the proof. Rules are rules, health codes, you know. And some guests might not like it. From a nearby table, a woman in flashy designer sunglasses chimed in. "Exactly. A dog's a dog, military or not," her voice dripping with disdain, just loud enough for Daniel to catch. Can you believe the nerve? The air grew thick with tension. Diners peeked over their plates, pretending to mind their own business while soaking in the drama. Daniel glanced at Rocky, who sat statue still, trained to ignore the strain in his handler's voice. Then, with quiet strength, Daniel locked eyes with the manager. "This dog dragged me from burning wreckage and stood between me and enemy fire," he said softly, his words heavy with truth. "I won't abandon him just because someone's uncomfortable." The manager crossed his arms, unmoved. "Then you know what you need to do." How could he be so cold? Daniel rose slowly, his dignity unshaken despite the sting of public humiliation. Rocky moved in perfect harmony, staying glued to Daniel's side as they walked out, the weight of curious stares pressing against them. Outside, an elderly couple who'd seen it all hurried past, heads down, but the husband caught Daniel's eye for a fleeting moment, a spark of solidarity. Yet, they didn't stop. Why don't people speak up? Near the entrance, a gaggle of college kids huddled, one slyly recording on his phone. "Look at this. Old guy thinks his emotional support must special forces or something," one snickered. "Probably just another PTSD case making up war stories," another laughed. "My cousin's got an anxiety hamster. Should we get it a tiny camo vet?" Daniel heard every word, his jaw tightening. He'd faced worse than these smartphone warriors in Afghanistan. Hadn't he? He found refuge on a park bench across the street, the restaurant still in view. From his jacket, he pulled a wrapped tuna on whole wheat sandwich, bought early. With a practiced hand, he split it in half, offering a piece to Rocky. "Not the feast I promised, buddy. But it'll do, right?" he murmured. Rocky took it gently, eating with the disciplined grace of a working dog, his eyes flicking back to Daniel's face for cues. What a bond they shared. In a quiet moment, Daniel reached for his wallet, pulling out a weathered photograph, safely tucked in clear plastic. It showed a younger Daniel, bloodied and barely conscious on a stretcher, with a less grizzled Rocky standing guard beside him. The dog's fur was matted. Could that be Daniel's blood? Around Rocky's neck hung the proud tags of Bravo Unit, K9 Division, from their days in Afghanistan's brutal Helmand province. This dog had earned commendations that outshone some human soldiers. How many lives had he saved? Passers-by drifted around them, blind to the silent conversation unfolding between man and dog, missing the pain and helplessness in Daniel's eyes. "Kicked out again, aren't we, boy?" he whispered, slipping the photo back into his pocket. Rocky answered by resting his head on Daniel's knee, a gesture as steady in an American park as it had been in a desert outpost. A young mom tugged her curious kid away, muttering warnings about strange men with dogs. Daniel ignored it. He was used to being seen as half curious, half threat. Wasn't that unfair? He glanced at his watch. Time for Rocky's meds. That dog had taken shrapnel in the same blast that scarred Daniel's leg, and they shared their pain management routines, just as they shared everything. As they sat, a city bus rumbled by, its side plastered with an ad. "Honor our veterans. They fought for your freedom." Daniel smirked at the irony. Rocky couldn't speak, but he'd saved lives, never flinching under gunfire, contempt or ridicule. Isn't that the truest kind of hero? 2 hours later, the Blue Water Grill's lunch rush was easing when the door burst open. 5 Marines in crisp dress blues strode in with jaw-dropping precision. No glancing at tables or specials. They marched straight to the host station. Diners fell silent. A kid pointed. A businessman paused his call. Who were these guys? The leader, a captain named McMillan, flashed his military ID. "I'm Captain James McMillan, commanding officer of Bravo Unit, 1st Marine Special Operations Battalion. I'm here for Daniel Carson and his service dog Rocky," he announced. The manager from earlier stumbled out of the back office, eyes wide as saucers. Phones now filming his every move. They left," he stammered. Caught off guard, wasn't he? 2 hours ago. McMillan's voice filled the hushed restaurant, steady but commanding. "Mr. Carson saved 4 of my men in an ambush outside Kandahar. His dog Rocky, more confirmed saves than most combat medics. He holds the rank of sergeant in our records and wears the Navy and Marine Corps medal." He let that sink in, the weight of his words pinning everyone in place. "And you refused service to an American hero. Can you imagine the shame in that room? The manager, the diners, even the woman in sunglasses. Were they rethinking their actions now?" The restaurant was frozen in a stunned silence. The woman who'd sneered about military dogs now stared into her water glass, her cheeks flaming red with shame. A waiter stood mid-step, pitcher tilted, caught in the moment like a statue. One of the Marines raised his phone, his voice cutting through the hush. "We're sending a notice about this to our veteran support network, 15,000 members strong statewide. They'll know exactly how veterans are treated here." The manager, flustered, stepped forward, hands raised in a feeble defense. "It's a misunderstanding. We had no idea. Can you believe he thought that would fix it?" "That's the problem, sir." Captain McMillan cut him off, his voice steady but piercing. "You shouldn't need a service record to show someone basic dignity." The Marines didn't shout or demand justice. They didn't need to. Their presence was enough. McMillan set a framed photograph on the counter, a powerful image of Rocky in full tactical gear alongside his unit, the word brother etched at the bottom. Then with quiet resolve they turned to leave. What a statement. As they exited, diners craned their necks, catching a glimpse through the window of Daniel and Rocky, sitting in an old pickup truck across the street, oblivious to the storm that had just erupted in their honor. The youngest server, a college student who'd watched the earlier clash in silence, felt her heart race. She couldn't just stand there. She grabbed a takeout container, stuffed it with the day's special freshly grilled fish, and slipped in a slice of warm apple pie for good measure. She sprinted outside, crossing the street to Daniel's truck, her hands trembling as she offered the package. Tucked under the string was a handwritten note. "We were wrong. Please let us make it right." How brave was that? Daniel looked at her, then at the restaurant, where faces now pressed against the windows, watching. After a heartbeat of hesitation, he nodded. Not forgiving, not condemning, but acknowledging the effort. As the server walked away, she overheard him murmur to Rocky, "What do you think, bud? Should we give him another shot?" Rocky's tail gave a single wag, a soldier's cautious nod to a possible truce. "Isn't that just like him? A week later, the Blue Water Grill had transformed. A new sign gleamed in the window. "We proudly welcome all veterans and their service companion." Below it hung a framed photo of military working dogs, from World War II to Afghanistan, a tribute to their unbreakable spirit. The local veterans organization threw a heartfelt ceremony outside, presenting Rocky with an honorary medal inscribed "Four-Legged Warrior Above and Beyond." Can you picture it? Rocky sat at perfect attention, not twitching a muscle until Daniel gave the release command. What a disciplined hero. Kids from a nearby elementary school poured in, clutching handmade cards bursting with thanks for Daniel and Rocky's service. One little boy, eyes wide with wonder, tiptoed up to Daniel. "Does he know when people say thank you?" he asked, pointing at Rocky. Despite his stiff leg, Daniel knelt down, his voice soft. "He doesn't need words, son. He just needs to be with folks who remember what he's done." How touching is that? The crowd melted at the exchange, hearts swelling with pride. The manager, he'd quit the day after the Marines' visit, leaving a handwritten letter for the owner. "Thank you for teaching me what no law book." Respect isn't about rules. It's about seeing the worth in others. The owner, daughter of a Vietnam vet, didn't waste a second. She rolled out mandatory training for all staff on service animals and the Americans with Disabilities Act. Even better, she started monthly community dinners where local veterans could share their stories, weaving a tighter community fabric. Isn't that what healing looks like? Daniel and Rocky became regulars, always claiming that same corner table, now adorned with a small American flag and a plaque proclaiming "Daniel and Rocky Bravo Team. Never forgot." One evening, the college kid who'd filmed the initial confrontation approached, phone in hand but not recording. "I deleted that video," he said, shifting awkwardly. "My brother just enlisted, and I'd want someone to respect him." His voice faltered, unable to finish. Daniel extended his hand, steady and sure. "Then be that someone now, for others." Could a moment be more powerful? Rocky, even in his older years, never slacked on his duties. During one lunch, a car backfired outside. Bang, and Daniel's hands shook like leaves in a storm. Quick as a flash, Rocky pressed against his leg, grounding him. Nearby diners looked away, not out of shame but out of a quiet respect for their privacy. What a change from that first day. 3 months later, Captain McMillan's unit geared up for another deployment. But before they left, they gave Daniel a unit coin, a rare honor for someone no longer on active duty. Can you imagine the pride in Daniel's chest? He kept that coin in his pocket, right beside that weathered photo of him and Rocky in Afghanistan. 2 tokens of a brotherhood that time couldn't touch. On peaceful evenings, you'd find Daniel and Rocky on their porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in fiery hue. Their silence spoke volumes, heavy with memories of scorching desert heat, earth-shaking explosions, and the eerie whistle of bullets zipping too close. Yet it also carried a quiet truth. Sometimes humanity remembers its duty to those who served, even if it takes a few Marines in dress blues to jog that memory. Doesn't that give you hope? Not every uniform makes a hero, but anyone who stands up for their comrade, even a 4-legged one, is no coward. This story might slip your mind in a few days, but if no one shares it, history will fade into silence. So why not keep it alive? Tell it, share it, and let the world know about Daniel and Rocky, the unbreakable team who showed us what loyalty and courage really mean.